Welcome back to The Explainer. So in our last discussion, we talked all about the fourth horizon. Today, we're going to build on that and take a look at the powerful toolkit that actually makes that theory work in practice.
All right, let's kick things off with a question that, on the surface, seems pretty simple, but it really gets to the heart of a huge problem. Think about it. Can a critic who has never, ever played a sport truly understand what's going on inside a champion's mind during a game?
And this isn't just about sports. Not at all. This is the exact same challenge scholars face when they try to study, say, mystical texts. How do you possibly account for that huge gap between a purely academic, intellectual understanding and the raw, lived experience?
Now, as we mentioned in our Fourth Horizon Explainer, this gap actually has a name. It's called epistemic distance. It's that space between the author's world and the researchers. And the big question has always been, how can we map this distance systematically? How do we stop just pretending it isn't there?
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down today. First, we'll tackle the interpreter's dilemma head-on. Then, we'll get into the PPM, which is a really cool diagnostic tool. We'll look at the results it produces, how they fit onto a four-quadrant map, and even see how people can journey across that map. And finally, we'll see what this all means. A new lens for interpretation. All right, part one, the interpreter's dilemma. The central problem that this whole framework, called the Hermeneutics of Parallelism, or HoP for short, was designed to solve is this. How do we account for the researcher's own experience, or, their lack of it? How do we make that a transparent, visible part of the research itself?
So, how do we actually do that? Well, this brings us to the first major piece of the HoP toolkit, the PPM. That stands for the Mystical Determination Protocol.
The best way to think about the PPM is like a diagnostic test, but it's not about getting a passing or failing grade. It's a really systematic, evidence-based way to figure out the experiential status of an author, a text, or even the person doing the research. The whole point is to make the process transparent and auditable.
Now, the real power of the PPM is that it's not just based on one person's gut feeling. It's all about triangulation. It works by gathering evidence from 5 completely distinct pathways to see if they all converge and point to the same conclusion. It's incredibly robust.
And here are those 5 pathways. It's a whole spectrum, really. You've got L1, which is about the researcher's own resonance with the material. Then there's L2, which is all about hard biographical data and evidence of practice. And it goes all the way to L4 and L5, which look at recognition from peers across different traditions. It's really comprehensive. So, what does a PPM result actually look like in practice? Let's move from the theory to the real world and see how this diagnostic tool is applied.
This is a perfect example. We're looking at the PPM results for the famous poet Rabindranath Tagore and his work, Gitanjali. And what you see here is that the evidence is just overwhelming. 4 out of the 5 pathways all point in this same direction, putting him squarely in what the framework calls the strong zone. It's a really clear determination that his work comes from a place of deep, profound experience.
But this raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? The PPM for Tagore is for a specific work at a specific time. What about a person's whole life? People aren't just a single static snapshot. We change, we evolve, sometimes we go through these huge transformations. So how does the system account for that? And that is where the second major tool comes into play. You see, the results from that PPM diagnostic, they aren't the end of the story. They're basically the coordinates you need to plot a position on an epistemic map.
Now, before we go any further, this is absolutely crucial to understand. The whole philosophy here is that this is a map, not a moral judgment. It is not about saying one scholar is better than another. The entire purpose is transparency, to simply show the distance between the interpreter and the text, not to rank anyone. And here it is, the Four Quadrant Matrix. It's a beautifully simple grid, really. You've got 2 axes. The vertical axis plots the status of the researcher. Do they have that parallel experience or not? And the horizontal axis plots the status of the author. And just like that, you get 4 very, very different epistemic positions. Okay, so what this really highlights is the difference in access to the material. Take a look at Quadrant 1, or K1. This is the insider's view, a mystic studying a mystic. The epistemic distance here is as small as it gets. Now compare that to K3. This is your classic outsider perspective, an academic without similar experience trying to understand a mystic. This is where the distance is the largest and, frankly, the most problematic.
And the other two quadrants, K2 and K4, just fill out the map. K2 is where you'd have someone with deep experience studying a purely academic text. And K4 is where most standard academic work happens, an academic studying another academic. See? Every possible relationship has its place.
So now, finally, we can go back and answer that question from before. What happens when a person's life is more like a journey than a single fixed point on a map? This is where we get to introduce something called quadrant morphosis.
And the life of the Sufi master Al-Shibli is the perfect case study for this. I mean, look at this timeline. He didn't just stay in one quadrant. He started his career firmly in K4 as a government official. Then he became a seeker, moving into K3. After a massive transformational event, he eventually emerged and stabilized in K1 as a recognized spiritual master. This journey across the map, that's what HoP calls quadrant morphosis.
There's a line from the source material that just captures this idea perfectly. PPM is a film, not a photograph. The goal isn't to take one snapshot of a person and stick a label on them for life. The goal is to watch the whole film of their journey, recognizing that people can, and often do, move across this epistemic map.
So let's zoom out and put all these pieces together. What's the big takeaway here? What does this new framework really offer us? Okay, here's the summary. The PPM is your diagnostic test, the Four Quadrant Matrix is the map, and quadrant morphosis is what tracks the journey over time. But the end goal here isn't gatekeeping. It's not about putting up walls. It's all about fostering epistemic transparency. It's a framework for being honest about where we, as researchers, are standing in relation to the work we're studying.
And of course, it's so important to give full credit where it's due. This entire really innovative framework and all of its instruments were developed by the author and researcher Sabavi Shok.
And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. We started this whole thing talking about sports. This framework brings so much clarity to the study of mysticism, but what other fields could it illuminate? Think about it. Couldn't you apply these same principles to better understand the work of a master artist, a virtuoso musician, or, yeah, even that champion athlete we started with? What new insights have we been missing?